Why do bad things happen to good people? Well, this is a great question. Now, I have met many faithful Christians for whom this question has caused them to question their faith in an all-good and all-knowing and all-powerful God. Now, this is understandable. After all, the presence of evil and injustice in the world is hard to reconcile with the constant Christian teaching that God is all-good, all-knowing, and continually controls the universe with his loving providence. But first, before we even try to answer the question, we have to first unpack the question. Within the question, why do bad things happen to good people, there are two hidden presumptions or two value judgments that might change how we even approach the issue. On the one hand, there's the notion of bad things. On the other hand, there's the notion of good people. Both of these terms carry within them presumptions that affect how we approach the question. Regarding the first, what are bad things? We might assume that we have a very clear idea of what bad things are, but the picture quickly becomes more complicated. For example, I might say that a thunderstorm is a bad thing for me since it affects my weekend plans, but that same thunderstorm is a good thing for the flowers, trees, and animals that rely on the water. Or again, a certain medicine might be a good thing for me if it cures my sickness, but that medication would be a bad thing for the virus or bacteria that it destroys. All right, let's take a more difficult example. A father's punishment of his child might be a bad thing for the child in one respect, since it denies the child of things that he desires, yet that same punishment would be a good thing in another respect for the same child, since it trains the child to be a disciplined and mature adult. So as we can see, the notion of bad things is not absolute. The concept is relative in that a bad thing is only labeled as bad since it is bad for someone or something. If we attempt to calculate the true goodness or badness of any event, that is, add up all the thousands of good or bad effects that might have, we quickly realize that we are attempting to judge something that only God himself could truly know. Only God, who sees the world from eternity, could ever really know the true goodness or badness of any event. Now, regarding the second, who are the good people? So often when we ask this question, why do bad things happen to good people? We uncritically assume that we know exactly who the group of good people are or who the group of bad people are. Now, let us be honest with ourselves. How often do we secretly assume that we ourselves are automatically a part of the group of good people? The truth is, from a Christian perspective, all have sinned. All born after Adam and Eve suffer the effects of the fall and have done something that is wrong at some point. Now, in the face of this question, we might ask, where are these sinless ones? Where are these angels that have done nothing wrong and deserve nothing bad? So in a very real way, a Christian, if he is honest with himself, knows that he's guilty of sin. Even more, a Christian, if he is honest with himself, knows that he ought to thank God for not giving him what he truly deserves. No, but let us step back. Let's go to our original question. Presumptions or value judgments aside, when people ask this question, what are they really asking? The question must make sense. It must have some meaning. When people ask the question, they are not inquiring about hidden value judgments at all, but rather asking about the seeming injustice in the world. Okay, maybe we are all guilty of sin, but why does God allow some evil to happen to some and not to others? Why does the evil that does exist in the world seem at times so random? Doesn't this point to a bad and unjust God? Now, instead of tackling this question directly, let us try to picture the world without the question at all. Why do bad things happen to good people? Imagine this. Imagine a world where God only let good things happen to people when they were good, and only let bad things happen to people when they were bad. Let us then ask ourselves, in such a world, why would we love God? Would we love God because he is goodness itself, the source of all truth and beauty? Or rather, would we love God because we were secretly afraid of what he might do to us if we didn't? Or again, imagine such a world. Let us honestly ask ourselves, in such a world, why would we be good to others? Would we be good simply because goodness is its own reward? That is, the very sharing in the image and likeness of the life of God himself? Or rather, would we be good because we were secretly afraid of the consequences of not being good? Would we be good simply because we were trying to get something from God or from others in return? This would not be a good world at all, but a bad world. In such a world, there would be no concept of gratuity, graciousness, liberality, or mercy. These concepts would never arise. After all, everything that happened to us or for us would simply be the result of justice. Such a world of strict justice would be horrible. In such a world, there would be no reason to ever say thank you to our neighbor. After all, anything good that came our way, even if it came through our neighbor, must somehow have come because of the fact that we earned it. It was some kind of cosmic karma. What a stale world. In such a world, there would be no reason to ever say, I'm sorry to our neighbor. Anything evil that happened to another through our own actions would just be in the end what that neighbor had coming to them anyways, in strict justice. What a heartless world. As we can see, a world where God only gave good things to people who were good, or bad things to people when they were bad, it's not a good world at all, but a merciless world, a heartless world, a loveless world. Though this is not a direct answer to the question, we can say that God creates the world the way that he does, not to merely be just and fair, but to establish the conditions within which his creatures can learn to love him for his sake and not for their own. He creates the world the way that he does so that you and I can learn to love each other, not for what we can receive in return, but for the sake of love itself. So ultimately, there is no perfect answer to the question of evil. But we know that God is good, and all he does for the sake of goodness. Any evil that he does decline to prevent, he does so because he is producing greater good in the end. Brothers and sisters, keep studying. This is Father Brad Elliott for the Western Dominican Province. You've been watching Truth in 60. For more exclusive videos, download the OPwest app. Link is in the description.